IVM.
Hey guys, if you like listening to my sultry voice and you want to listen to more of it, you can check out IVM Likes. It's a weekly podcast where the IVM staff sit together and we dish out pop culture recommendations and discuss what's happening in the world of entertainment, everything from sexism to homophobia and Oscars. It's a wide variety show. It's a lot of fun. So please tune in every Monday on IVM Podcast website, app or wherever you check out podcasts. Thank you.
You're listening to Keeping It Queer with Navin Narona.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Keeping It Queer. I'm Navin Narona, your host for the show. And today with me in the studio, I have Pradipta Ray, a very renowned filmmaker, actor, and award-winning filmmaker, in fact. And I'm really glad you could join me on this show. And before we start, there's a certain way people say your name. Pradipta is what people know you in Bombay. But in Cal, you're Pradipto. What's the reason behind that?
So, I think this is, I suppose it's a Bengali thing that we write A and expect the world to pronounce O.
Yeah.
So, Pradipta in Bengali would be a girl's name and Pradipta a boy's name.
Correct.
Okay. But not all the Pradiptas would write Pradipto. A lot of them would write Pradipta also.
Okay.
So it's a bit confusing, and so I initially used to write Pradipto, but my 10th standard, the admit card and mark sheet, everything came as Pradipta. And those days, I'm talking about 80s, early 90s. Those days, getting it changed is a big pain.
The whole affidavit process and everything.
Yeah. And like several times you'll have to visit the board.
So that's very
office.
convenient, right? Like because you were given Pradipta at birth and then like when you came to Bombay, you were like...
Yeah, when I went to Ahmedabad to study, suddenly the whole world started calling me Pradipta because it's Pradipta. That's the official spelling.
Correct.
And it works fine with me because I always identified as a woman. So my name became Pradipta. Even my bank account, when I was... applying for passport in Bombay, and you have to produce, right, your documents of last whatever number of years you've been living in this city. And I had said that 8 years I'm in Bombay. And then, so bank account statements, would be the only sort of document to prove that. So I went to the passport office and suddenly I realized that my ICICI bank statement comes as Miss Pradipta Ray.
Okay.
Okay, so...
Yeah, problem.
Thanks to the system that we have, that people just don't read documents which are produced properly. Otherwise, my passport would have been denied, or they would have raised an issue there.
Yeah.
But then the officer, I think, just did not. They would just tick on the address. The flat number, whatever, because
Correct.
they have to probably deal with so many people every day. So they
just like overlook the name and the gender and everything else.
So and look at the bank when I had filled up the forms. That was also in 2003 or 4-ish or 5 probably.
Okay.
So it was, I ticked as male. So initial statements would come as Mr. And then on its own, somebody must have fed in Miss.
I think ICICI called the passport office and like...
No, nothing happened. Then I had to again ask the bank to change it to Mr.
That's a whole new form of clusterfuck, isn't it? Like just like different documents have different initials.
Yeah.
So let's go back to Cal when you were born. What was your family like? What was your culture like there?
Okay, I think I was born in a very strange family. So even
strange? How so?
Because I was born, I always knew that I felt like a woman. I identified as a woman ever since I was a little child, because all the makeup and jewelry would attract me, right? So, and I would say strange family because a lot of kids who were like me identify as the opposite sex. They would have had a very tough, growing up. For me, it was rather relaxed because I wouldn't say that it was not tough at all. I can't say that.
There is stress. There is by default.
There is by default, because even if pressure is not from your immediate family, but then you still live in a society. I mean, if you still live in a locality where there are human beings who might not be inclusive or understanding. So. Yeah, but then when at times I would wear makeup to school, right, and atrocious looking back, it'll be quite horrible.
The makeup or the school?
No, the makeup.
Okay.
No, because those days, I mean, in 80s, our benchmark or reference point of makeup would be the 80s Hindi film actresses, commercial Hindi cinema actresses.
Like Vajanti Mala and stuff.
No. 80s would be Rekhas and Sri Devis.
Oh,
and
Sri Devis,
like all the Mickey contractors and all. They'll be doing makeups. But I suppose that was the language of the fashion language, which was a little garish.
It was not polished enough.
Not really. Because they had to sell something which is exotic, right? So the makeup would also be like making a statement that, see, look at me, I'm wearing makeup, which otherwise people would not be dressed up like that in their real lives. So
and that was, like, I think relevant throughout the world in terms of the 80s. Everywhere, like, gaudy fashion or
very
bright colors were like in fashion in trend. In
so
vogue,
imagine a school kid going to school with eyeshadow of like magenta, gold and blue in Indian skin tone.
That's some flag, I think.
Yeah, and Indian skin tone, those colors also would not, they're not apt for a skin tone. So, we were all in school and Google was not available those days, right? Yeah. So we had no access to if one would want to learn about makeup or gather information. So my mother would catch me wearing makeup. I mean, I'll go to the bathroom and...
the magenta eyeshadow.
Yeah, and then suddenly, a couple of times my mother caught me applying mascara or eyeshadow, and then she'll be like, why would you do this? Did you ever see me wearing makeup? I would be like, yeah, you don't. She's like, no, your skin gets spoiled with mascara. You might just go blind. I mean, she had this phobia about makeup.
So most mothers would be like, why are you wearing makeup? What's wrong with you?
Yeah,
but your mom is like,
my mother is like...
be naturally beautiful.
Yeah, her point was different. I mean, those days, I was like, one wouldn't even think about it. It was just a situation. So, yeah, later on, looking back, I realized that, I was very privileged to be born in a household where the problem is not, I mean, in spite of being a boy child, why are you wearing makeup?
Correct.
The problem is something else. When coming to talking about even the locality or the mohalla we lived in, so ever since I was a little child, the whole mohalla, it was those days it will be like a big joint family, the whole mohalla,
close
right?
knit,
yeah. So they'll know about each other's household, everything. I mean, all the informations they would all know. So all the aunties, they knew that as a child, I always wanted to dress up like a woman, like a girl. So one of the aunties, she bought me a frock also. So they were also very strange. It was a very strange mohalla. So they would keep telling my mother that, your son wants to become a girl, so take him to the doctor. And they'll say, like, get it operated and all. Okay. So I don't know if they had the information or
the right
SRS. Came into the picture those days. I'm sure in India it wasn't there. But they could just think of, going to a doctor and getting it operated, and it was like a very simple thing in their heads, probably. And as a child, I always had this phobia when I used to hate going to the doctor when I'll be unwell. And all the aunties, they'll keep on telling my mother that, okay, he wants to... I don't know if they were like... telling it in a good way or to just make him like get me scared. that you have to be taken to the operation theatre and all.
Like if you're afraid of the needle of a syringe, then getting a body part chopped off is
I was not afraid of a needle, but popping pills I was always very scared of.
Okay, choking acid.
I still cannot swallow pills.
That's what she said.
So, so I think that's why it became very scary, or I was scared as a child. I don't know, but so this SRS was never a reality for me when I grew up and when I had the option. So.
You didn't want to opt for it in general?
No, I don't know if it's because as a child I was traumatized with the idea of getting, operated and all. Or probably because the fact that I was born in a family that even my father, he knew that I'm wearing makeup and whatnot. He would not even say anything.
So from your family side, were they like culturally affluent in terms of like having well-read stuff? Or
yeah.
That helps, I think, that, the worldly view always helps in
in spite of being a Bengali middle class household, I think my father had a lot of things very clear, like privacy was given a lot of importance. So if I get a letter, or whoever gets a letter, no one else would ever open the letter. If I have a closet, no one else would touch, even if they're touching, because this house was our house was very old, so it had termite problems. So if I'm not there, and they had to clean the closet, obviously you open closets and you'll have skeletons and whatnot.
And out comes a fairy.
Yeah, but then no questions were asked because it was accepted fact that you open your child's closet and you would get surprises. So they were never talked about.
It's rather pleasant to hear for a change, like there was no restriction in terms of how you wanted to be.
Yeah, I mean, and lots of strange things would be there, like a lot of porns and whatnot.
Okay.
But then again, I come from a different family. When I joined art college, my father told me that, I did not know that, my son would
actually
be in fine arts and all. So, because apparently my father's grandfather had some collection of porn, which now it would have been quite a...
so we're talking like 40s probably, like the porn collection.
Yeah, probably 30s.
And was it like visual or like how was it?
No, I'm sure in India they did not publish those days, but I'm sure these would be coming from England.
Abroad, the erotica sort of.
Yeah, eroticas. So he said that I did not know that if I should, because our ancestral property, what we have got, has always been libraries, which is like being handed over from one generation to the other. So not land. In spite of the fact that I come from a zamindar's family, but the land is gone now. Only thing we have are the books and the library.
So you moved to Ahmedabad, you said, after growing up. What was that like? And why the transition to Ahmedabad? What happened?
Okay, so I always wanted to go to NID, National Institute of Design, to learn filmmaking or say design. So, and my mother always wanted me to go to NID. So... And my father was not very happy when I joined art college.
Okay.
Because he was excited about NID, because NID has a lot of theory also. But, in India, the fine art colleges, in spite of the fact that they do have theory courses, but it's not that intense.
Yeah.
It's more of a skill-based training that happens. Even now, it is like that. So that's why my father did not want me to. I mean, he wouldn't say no, but he was not too thrilled about going to fine art college. But then after that,
what did you want to do in general?
I always wanted to draw, so I did fine arts. And while doing fine arts, and I was always great fan of Hindi films. So
what's your favorite one?
I have several favorites. I mean, I have phases in life.
Okay.
So
back then Hindi was a big thing.
Yeah, because the Bengali cinema was talking about 80s. It was still
Decent.
more realistic because you had Ray, Mrinal Sen.
Mm-hmm.
They were making films, and the commercial scenario was also not so bad. The commercial cinema. So, and it never, appealed to me because it's again the same garibi or, the middle class
Yeah, the son and the mother separate and meet years later.
Yeah, but then on the other hand, Hindi cinema had Helen numbers, a lot of dancing, a lot of makeup.
Cabaret came into.
Yeah. And they were more glossy and I know those atrocious use of star filters. But those days as a child...
I still love them.
Yeah.
Like a very unique feature.
Yeah, even I loved them.
Because now like
so
JJ
much.
Abrams use flares and people like fall gaga over him. I think you go back to like those days and see how the the tinge on the side of the screen. Yeah. And it was nice. It was different for a change.
Yeah, I mean that was the only window we had of a certain culture or
also experimenting with styles. I noticed mostly songs had that more in terms of the light or the feel of it. If you wanted to go a little western, they would go with the songs, but the story would come back to being a Adarsh Indian family.
Story.
Yeah. But that's nice. I think so. Cinema obviously had a great influence on your life.
Yeah, and then Raj Kapoor has always been my one of my all-time favorites. So I don't know. I mean, as a child, I wouldn't know what really appealed to me about Raj Kapoor films. But I think his sense of drama, probably.
So you like more more over the top sort of stuff, apart from because you said the Bengali cinema is realistic, like Ray is very realistic.
Very realistic.
Yeah. So taking a deviation from that, you were looking for something more outlandish, something more if romance is happening, then romance is amped up by 10.
Yeah. So it was a different world. I mean, that was the fantasy for me.
Exactly.
Even for the longest time, I think what the popular Hindi cinema, the way it can impact a young mind. I think I'm one of the rare examples, or like for me, for the longest time, I thought that a woman is actually very unsafe when she's going on the streets because popular Hindi cinema mein you have a woman going to the market to buy sabzi, and then one gunda comes in and holds her dupatta. Yeah. And I actually used to think that it was real. And so I had
in Delhi it is like it's still
for me it was specifically like West Bengal is a place where it's safe, and other than West Bengal, other than the Bengalis, the Hindi speaking population or parts of the country, it's very unsafe.
Okay.
And that was the as a child, that was the idea which was like stuck in my head. So I wouldn't know if it's real, unreal or fantasy, but as a child it was like that. So whenever the whole family will go out, say you're holidaying and all, I would be so scared about my mother because I thought that, we are stepping into a territory where she would be extremely unsafe. Looking back, it's
a genuine fear, I feel like.
Yeah.
I remember one time my mom got into a bus and the bus went away without us. Like the rest of the family was outside the bus, and I ran after. I was 5. I ran after the bus and I found a cabbage on the street and I threw it at the bus. So it was. So I think even at that age you're very protective of your mother because how much
you. I mean, we were 2 brothers, so she was the only woman in the house. Even till date, I think when. I'm traveling with a friend who is a girl. I just feel very
ultra supportive,
ultra protective or whatever, and that's why maybe another reason that I don't want to wear women's clothes all the time. Probably because like it's very layered, right? You can't
it's conditioning
say that,
and like years of
yeah. So when I'm dressed up as a man, I know that I'm safe, at least in this country. On the streets, late in the night, I can go anywhere and everywhere. But I mean, on the other hand, today's scenario or otherwise also, if a man dressed up as a woman is extremely unsafe, I wouldn't say unsafe, but I would say extremely vulnerable. Because there are like a lot of assumptions. People just assume that she's probably out to
Be a hooker basically, or beg for money.
or
Yeah.
a hooker. So and in India probably, I don't know about other cultures, but in India certainly people do think that if you're a hooker, then it's okay to get physical with you.
Yeah, and that's like, I think it's been a problem across Europe, America as well. I was watching this documentary on Marsha P. Johnson, and like how a lot of trans kids were thrown out of their houses, and they had no resort. Either they were fighting for the gay movement, or they were like bustling on the streets and trying to sell their bodies for some bucks. And it's just the idea of it is so scary that like you are all on your own, and at the same time, not only are you a person trapped in a different gendered body, you also have these people who are against you for just being who you are, and then they'll attack you and physically kill you if you don't even if you don't oblige. Like sometimes they would like pick up trans women who looked petite or flaily, and then find out that they do have penises, and then they would get very physical with them, beat them up, or throw them out of the window. So there's a lot of violence involved in this in general, and I'm glad that thankfully from your family at least, and there are several other families now who are slowly wisening up to it and are being very protective about it. Even going to a pride now is like a matter of owning up to who you are, and being more away from what gender costumes are all about. So let's take a small break here, and we'll come back. We'll talk about your Ahmedabad education and how you got into filmmaking and made some amazing short films. I'm keeping it queer with Pradipta Ray, and we'll be back after this break.
Shunyavan, 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 Shunyavan.
$1 billion acquisition. Another copycat startup got formed.
No, the tech world in India is surely moving double the speed of this voiceover.
Tune in to Shunya One every Tuesday to catch us talking to the smartest people we know on the IVM Podcast website, app, or wherever you get your podcasts from. Shunya One is brought to you by Setu IMAX.
Welcome back to Keeping It Queer. I'm here in conversation with Pradipta Ray, filmmaker and a trans person who's talking about her life. So you said you were really scared about going out as a woman back then because you thought that film industry was portraying women like that. When did that change? Was there like a moment of clarity ever?
No, and it's not as a child. Even till date,
okay.
I feel like that. So the impact has been so much.
But I've seen you in saris and you look very elegant. And
no, it's not about how I look. Yeah. It's about some fear which is like stuck in my head ever since I was a little child. So I'm still not been able to
So was Ahmedabad safer in general when you moved there? Would you feel
Yeah.
Okay.
Ahmedabad. See, initially when I moved to Ahmedabad, I was just an outsider, right? And I mean, thanks to this, thanks to the sexuality, so we would go to the cruising places in Ahmedabad and make some local friends. Earlier, like for first 1 year, I was just an outsider who would hate Ahmedabad or say hate Gujaratis. Which is like the very normal thing when students come to any new city. And whatever that, again, during that time, whatever people would feel or the general notion about the localites. But I suppose it's always there. When you go to a new city or different city, as a student, you just... look down upon, and then if you're studying in one of the best institutes, colleges there, not too many localites study in that college, then you
so like a proper hosh posh of cultures and diversity.
So NID was rather cosmopolitan. So outside, when you step out of the institute, you are in Gujarat, but within the institute, it's very cosmopolitan.
So how were your professors and your fellow students there?
Oh, they were very good back then. The professors were like, I would say they were super cool.
So they knew about like you feeling like a woman?
I think they all knew because the first performance, dressing up as a woman, I did one Helen number there.
Okay.
Way back in 2000, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. And the professor, they said, so we have this thing called Monsoon Fiesta, where different departments, it's like games and sports events. So different departments, they compete with each other. So we have a dance competition also.
Okay.
So there I dressed up as Helen. I performed.
What number was this?
This was Piya Tu Ab To Aaja.
The all-time
Yeah, obvious reasons. So at the professors, so it was for the opening ceremony. So all the professors, they requested that we want the VC performance to happen for the closing ceremony as well, because they wanted to see my performance. So yeah, we tried, but it never happened. So then I walked the ramp at IIM Ahmedabad. They have their fest, annual fest is called Chaos. So they have a fashion show, which is a competition again, all the SEP.
It's rather suitable for IIM Ahmedabad to have Chaos as the fest.
Yeah.
In hindsight.
Yeah, they just call it chaos. Or it is okay, let's be politically correct. Yeah, so I think I was the first biologically male who was wearing women's garments and walking the ramp.
And how was the reaction when you did that?
I wouldn't know, because I did not care. And thanks to my family, it's that what I feel is more important than what people think about me. So that's the attitude. Thanks to my family that I've got that attitude. So it doesn't matter when I'm not even I'm unshaven for days together. I'm still a woman in my head. Doesn't matter.
And that's actually rather enlightening, because I felt this again, because I grew up in a very male form of atmosphere, and it's only now that I'm messing with androgyny or with drag a little bit. So after the Pride, I went to drink at Kemp's Corner, which is in South Bombay, and at the turning where there's a massive signal, I just stood in a skirt and smoked a cigarette, and people were all gazing at me, and there was breeze also, so my skirt is flailing around everywhere, and I felt very happy. I felt so liberated for a change. There was no need for me to hide from the fact that I want to do this. It's not anybody else's choice. And my mom knew I was going in a skirt this time for the Pride, and she was all let's try it. She don't wear something too tight, okay? Just wear something that enhances your body curves in a way. So I think it's very important for our families to be involved in our lives early on as a queer person, so they have the confidence in us, for us to have confidence in ourselves to go out and be ourselves. Yeah,
initially, when I started wearing women's clothes and going out in open, initially I can't say that I was not ever bothered about what people would think, but you are. One is always, because I'm a bit image conscious, because I don't want to be associated with an image which is a man who is trying to dress up as a woman, but very inappropriately dressed up.
Yeah.
No, I cannot.
No half-assed it,
yeah. So initially I used to feel that, okay, people are looking at me because they have understood. But later I realized that not really. Because, on the streets, when a man is looking at a woman, they don't ogle, right? When you're facing that woman, you don't ogle. You just look, and that's it, right? So, and within that fraction of a second, it's way too short a time to realize that it's actually a biological man who is dressed up as a woman. Then I realized probably I look very beautiful, very pretty.
Then they ogle.
No, they can't, no.
How fast are you running on the streets?
I don't run.
Okay, then
because I'm always on high heels.
Exactly. So when a guy sees you, he likes the person who's walking in front of him, then they ogle. Men do that all the time.
They do?
Yeah.
I don't know, because I look into their eyes, so they get conscious probably.
Yeah, if something catches our fancy, men always spend time. That's a very inherent male chauvinistic thing to do, because we're
in India?
Everywhere. I think it's a very common thing.
Oh, I thought...
I've done that many times, and I won't lie. I'm very voyeuristic in a way. I just feel if someone pretty is walking in front or someone good looking is walking, then there's a whole reason they're walking out of the house. Someone feels good about them being themselves, and
Oh, I get very conscious even looking at somebody.
So let's talk about filmmaking now. Because after Ahmedabad, you decided to get into filmmaking, and how was that process? What was the mindset then?
So I joined NID to learn animation, because those days I joined in the postgraduate course. So those days they did not have film and television department as a post-PG course. So they only had animation as PG. So I thought, I've done fine arts, I know how to draw, I can make animation, right? So I joined because basically I wanted to learn design and learn filmmaking. Otherwise one would have applied to FTI.
Correct, yeah.
Right.
I was going to ask the same question. Why didn't you go to FTI? But then...
No, my mother always wanted me to join NID because my first cousin, she's from NID.
Okay.
So my mother had gone for her convocation when I was in school. This was way back in 80s. And she always wanted me
She was
to.
convinced that this is the best place for you.
Yes. So I had to, that's probably the only pressure that I had on me to. But then, because NID you have to sit for the entrance exam. And once you've cleared that, only then you get to be a student there. So I mean, it was not that much of pressure either. But still, she wanted me to, and I was also, NID is the best institute, so why not NID? So you get to learn so many other things, like FTI only filmmaking, but NID you learn design, you learn animation, filmmaking. So that's why I joined NID, and
Then you got to making movies after that immediately, or like?
No, after that I came to Bombay, and
what convinced you to move to Bombay?
Oh, that's the only place where you can make films, right?
It's true.
The film industry is in Bombay. And then animation, after, being an animation graduate, and I didn't want to do probably any of the IT jobs I didn't want to take up. So I moved to Bombay, and I was struggling probably to earn and to be able to pay my bills, and without even realizing, that's how life in Bombay is, that you don't realize. And one fine morning you wake up and it's been 10 years that you have lived in this city.
And you're with hand to mouth all these 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for the first, I think, 5-6 years, I would just earn, party, spend the money, that's it. And then recession happened.
Around 2009.
Yeah, 2009. And I've always been a freelancer. So we had...
toughest year.
And I had no savings at all. So it was literally hand to mouth, 2009. So one friend from Ahmedabad, he came. And obviously, he's also a gay friend who acted in my first short film. A brilliant actor. So he came, and then he told me, obviously, during recession, you have no bank balance, you're poor, right? And then that's really not the right time for you to
get into ventures.
Or when a friend is lecturing you about life, that's really not the right time. But then I took him, I took it positively. I don't know why, because of the respect that I have for my friend. So he said that, listen, darling, you came to Bombay not to just earn and spend. You came here with an agenda of making films, right? What have you done about it? Nothing you have done. And then I was like...
jolt of reality.
Yes, showing the mirror is fine, but probably that was not the right time. But still, I took a couple of days, and then he was staying here for 5 days. So after that, he said that, okay, why don't you make a Gujarati film? So I started writing Gujarati features. So I thought I would someday get to make the new age Gujarati feature, which I was not able to get.
So you were well versed with the language by then?
I understand Gujarati. So I started watching the DVDs of atrocious thing that is called Gujarati cinema. It's horrible. The 80s, 90s, and not that the commercial scenario was...
We didn't have Modi speeches back then, so we didn't have reference to understand Gujarati from that.
Yeah.
Now we all know. Now we have to all learn Gujarati by default.
I don't know, because I just, for the Gujarati, but I was missing, after I shifted to Bombay, I missed Ahmedabad so much that I started learning Gujarati.
Okay.
I never spoke a single sentence in Gujarati when I was in Ahmedabad, but after I came to Bombay, I started, I can manage in rural Gujarat.
Nice.
Manage pretty well. So I wrote that Gujarati feature, never got the funds to make it. Then again, a couple of more years, then I started actually working with feature films.
So all these years after NID, you were freelancing. So what were you doing exactly?
I was doing animation. I was
Okay.
doing pre-production. So I
Okay.
did storyboards for this film called Rang De Basanti.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah. So
Thank you for that. Thank you for being a part of the movie.
Welcome. So the shot where they're all jumping
Oh,
in the air.
from
so that
like
was,
backwards in the water?
No. When the flight is
Okay, the
taking
flight,
off, which
yeah.
became
They jump
the
a lot in the movie,
poster.
basically, I realized.
Yeah. So that was visualized by me. So
That's the poster of the movie.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah, so at any of my presentation, I start with that frame, okay, till today.
And that's legit. Like, that's the biggest movie of all time, for me at least.
Yeah, it was, that's what people call it, a cult film.
Yeah.
So after Rang De Basanti, then I thought that, okay, pre-production would be the area. Those days one was young and would have a lot of like josh. Into about
Another great
things.
Josh.
So then the next film which I got was Hey Baby. And I don't want to talk about it.
That's not, yeah.
Yeah. So from Rang De Basanti to Hey Baby, and then probably little here or there I would visualize some scenes for, say, Kambakt Ishq and all. But pretty much I was doing visualization only restricted to ad films. And other than that, I would do animation for MTV and Star TV, their animated promos. So this was my freelancing.
So 2009
area.
was like the year where everything went little kaput. So-
And then 2010 onwards, I started writing stories.
And 2012 you launched Raat Baki, which is an award-winning film. And tell me about that.
So Raat Baki was actually a story written for UTV.
Okay.
And so they were producing short films for mobile content. And a lot of my friends, they had also written stories which were eventually made into films. But my story, because it had queer characters, suddenly the feedback I got from UTV was that can you make it more funny?
Okay.
You have seen Raat Baki, I don't know. Have you seen?
I have not yet seen it. So
Okay, so it's already funny.
Okay.
You can't make it any more, funnier. So I did not know how to do it, right? I mean, when you have a story, one has to be very honest about it. No, you cannot then force
Funny
a
into it.
different, genre into the story. The story would have its own character. So I refused to do that. So I never got the money to make it. So I waited for a year, and then I thought, what the heck? I mean, like this, it'll never. I mean, if you keep waiting, the Gujarati feature also did not take off because it was a lot of money it needed because it's a feature-length film. But Raat Baki is a short film, very small film. Why not put in my own money? So I did that. So I did not have enough money to shoot it in Bombay because of the permissions are very, very expensive, and I didn't know that how is it. I mean, that if you could shoot it without permission and all. So hence I shot it in Ahmedabad, even though it's like in the film it's set in Bombay because people are drinking in pubs and all, so it can't be anywhere in Gujarat. But then the movie was entirely shot in Ahmedabad because it's at least those days, even today, I think it's relatively it's more comfortable. I mean, shooting without permissions on the streets of Ahmedabad. Yeah.
Okay, shoot me nice and like with a camera.
With a camera, with crew.
I'm just trying to be funny, I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, but I have friends now. I have a lot of connection in Ahmedabad.
So it's safe for you in a way.
Safe and getting permissions, they would know.
So I'll talk about the movie I did watch, and this was at a screening in Hive, which I remember was like, back in the day we used to do the Q Fest there, and we had Shobna and you address a crowd, and then we saw Guy Next Door, which is a 2015 movie with two of my very close friends, Aditya and Sheldon. And it's a horror queer story.
Yeah.
And that's like never heard of, for me at least. Like, I've never heard of a queer horror story, a short film nonetheless. So how did you come up with that idea?
Okay, so Guy Next Door happened once. Like I have friends who would come home and at times we would probably going through a phase where we haven't worked for some time. So then we'll have to
brainstorm and come up with ideas.
Some idea. So it was. So we all thought that okay, let's brainstorm for half an hour, and then come up with stories. And whose story is the best or more interesting and doable, we'll shoot that in that night.
Picking lots. Basically.
Yeah. So my story was this horror film, and obviously queer characters would be there. So that's how the story happened, and we shot, and so it was just
to give a gist to our listeners about the story of the film. It's a guy hooking up with another guy over on online dating app or service, and the guy turns out to be right outside his door. And then like they have the best sex, and then like the mystery unfolds as to who the guy is. And I really liked the concept. Like, I was really, and I know Sheldon so well, and I was so scared because of the character. We went to the same school together, by the way. So,
okay.
And Sheldon's been always the actor types and always the more musical play sort of stuff. So he's very talented. I want to get him on the show as well. But why did you choose Aditya and Sheldon then for the roles?
Okay, so what happened was after I had written the script, I went to Pride, and after the Pride, it was in 2014. Yeah. So after the Pride, I kept on asking my friends, for this horror film that I have, who do you think should be the main guy? So then somebody, my friend Joe, he said that, why don't you ask Aditya? I'm like, yeah, his face is very interesting. I wanted a very interesting face. Right. Who would look very, very, very vulnerable, yet very real, not too glamorous. Rather, the guy next door had to be glamorous. So Aditya, spoke to him. He agreed. And then I started looking for the guy next door. And all the model friends. I mean, see, the problem with all the model friends or the struggling actors is that when it's a queer-themed film, they again don't want to get tagged and whatever. I mean, it's absolutely their call. But so people were very unsure, who otherwise would be like dying to be a part of my short film. But then when time comes, they'll all be, they'll all be very skeptical about it. Then I told Aditya that, okay, darling, you don't have a have a hero.
Nobody to have sex with in the movie.
Yeah. So why don't you suggest somebody? So then Aditya said, okay, so Sheldon is a friend and we know each other for some time, and so he might be comfortable, and because he is into singing and I'm already doing shows and all. So he might be a good option. So I saw his pictures on Facebook, and
he's a very handsome man, isn't he?
He is. Yeah.
No denying that. So, we had Aditya on the show like last season for the 10th episode, and like he spoke mainly about dealing with an IIT life and dealing with bullying and everything. On the other hand, like you see a different talent altogether where he's being able to expose himself as an actor as well, and I think that's a really good thing. Like what we need in the queer community is more opportunities for everybody to intermingle and do more stuff. Because as I see from your filmography, like you focus on queer stories so much. Was it subconsciously a decision to do that, or like were you like always thinking that maybe if I start making films?
See, I would say that these are the characters I know the best, right? Inside out. So, and if you look at the journey so far, Raat Baki,
ED as well.
Raat Baki started off as almost trying to sort of introduce you to different situations. So hence you have like a straight guy, a gay guy, and a trans person. Then ED is more probing into this trans person's home, right?
What dynamics the person shares.
Yeah. And the differences between Ranjita and her childhood friend, who is a closeted gay guy. But then I think when till Guy Next Door, it's almost one was trying to normalize. And that has been my idea, that the characters might be straight, queer, whatever. It's the story or
Correct.
or the genre which is important.
So
right?
it won't take away much from the dynamics, but just the fact that
Yeah. So it's like taking it to some other level where it's a horror. I mean, it's not the best film that I've made, but yeah, I just wanted to experiment.
So what would you say is the best film so far?
Okay. it's more. I think it's more sellable.
Okay.
Guy Next Door.
That's true, yeah.
It's more popular. It has more popular.
It has a nice
appeal.
clincher and sales hook.
Yeah. Like Evie is almost my way of documenting queer lives.
Correct.
So I have yet another film. So Edhi was actually based on Ranjita and another childhood friends. I mean, we four of us, we went to school together.
Okay.
So one of those characters, again, I'm finished writing another short story. It's called One Day.
Okay.
So that's also documenting one of my childhood friends.
Okay.
His life. And then obviously, I mean, because it's a story, it has to certain situations and certain drama you will need to add.
So we spoke to Sridhar Rangan in the last season, and he spoke to us about how much of a struggle it is to push out queer content into the mainstream, or just like make people watch it for the starters. So would you say it's difficult making queer themed films or short stories or anything around queer pop culture?
I think queer short stories would be difficult. I mean, the same reason that I had to keep producing my own films, because I don't know. I mean, when someone else is putting in money in your film and who is not from the community, would have a say, right?
They expect returns, obviously.
Or even if they don't expect any returns, they'll have a say, no? 2 paisa to add to the creative part of that project. But that might not be the or a very valid point of view or opinion, right? When you're saying that giving feedback, that's actually your opinion, right? So like for example, I pick up fights with my friends that when they're making films, I'm talking about feature films, a lot of them they have homophobia, right? But very mindlessly, you cannot force your homophobia into your story.
Exactly.
Right. But then that's his or her point of view or opinion. I mean, it's a different issue of it's a different debate that whether it's right or wrong. One should force one's opinions when it's about transphobia or homophobia. But similarly, when someone else is trying to tell me how to tell my story or tweak the characters according to their notions or their understanding, which might not be the perfect. I'm not saying I have perfect, but I have at least an insider's
your own vision, right? That's
yeah. So I refuse to do that. Hence, I mean, I'm quite adamant about it. So and it's just some lacks, and you have friends. I mean, you can always ask friends to invest in your short films. Like the next film would be my the biggest budget. So it's so I have already some friends. They have they're putting in money.
Have you thought of crowdfunding any of your films?
Not yet. Again, it needs, I suppose, a lot of homework.
A lot of dedication. You keep pushing it as well.
Yeah.
But we are living in a time now where, like, aspiring filmmakers get to...
But I can do that for my feature film, not short films.
Exactly, yeah.
I think short films, how much? Within 10 lakhs, no?
I don't know. I've never made a short film. I have no idea. I don't even get paid for my comedy.
I have a friend who has made a feature-length film for 10 lakhs, which is shot in the US. How? Even that is possible.
I think I know this one. I went for the screening. Isn't it about this guy who's South Indian and goes to America?
Yeah. I'm talking about that.
I was not favorable to the movie. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I used to review films for Book My Show earlier.
Okay.
So I know this.
Okay. Yeah. So this film, friends would be funding, and I mean whatever, some bits even I'll have to fund. So this is set during post Godhra riots in Ahmedabad, and it's based on real incident. So
Okay.
two men, they meet, one religious minority, one sexual minority. And then what happens that night?
Let's find out.
Yeah. So I'll
So
be...
when do you think it'll go on floor and we'll be able to see
I
it?
think end of Feb, I'll be shooting it.
Awesome. So by this end year, we should be able to...
Yeah.
It's one
Mid
night.
this year.
Okay, mid this year. One night. One day.
No. This is not one day.
Okay, this is a feature film you're planning.
No. This is also short film,
Okay.
but 20-25 minutes
Okay.
long.
Cool. So what next after this movie? Do you have some bigger plans in general?
Oh, well, I've been writing features. I mean, I've got... I'm working on 3 story ideas. Again, they have queer characters. So, but of late, people are sort of showing interest because this has also become sellable in a way. I mean, thanks to media. I mean, we have come a long way, I suppose, where even the mainstream
It's now
film
Bollywood
industry...
starting to start doing gay baiting, basically. That's one way of getting people to...
Yeah. I mean, one of the items in the film, or in the popular Hindi cinema, if it's full of masala, so one of the masala is the gay or trans angle.
The balancing it out.
Yeah, I don't think they put in so much of thinking.
Yeah, there's no thinking. There's just let's just go with
When
this.
you say balancing it out,
They believe. I think filmmakers believe that they're doing a good thing by putting a gay character without having understood.
That's what I mean. When you have characters, I mean, recently somebody, I don't know if I should be taking names. Yeah, somebody called me to. Seems there is a role of a trans person in Fukre 2 Returns.
Okay.
So thankfully nobody got back to me. I said yes, but I need to know the script and all of that. When I watched the film, it's the role of a hijra.
Okay.
So obviously I wouldn't have
Been able to
portray that because I mean, I'm not an actor. I can only act in my films or the characters that I know inside out, and I feel I have to be comfortable.
And how was the role in the movie when you finally saw it?
It's just a role of a hijra. It's not demeaning, nothing. But
the run-of-the-mill Bollywood portrayal of the
not really. Little different from the popular way of
showing them as
characterizing a hijra, but I mean nothing much. And I'm not saying that I want to do... I'm out to change the notions or anything. No, I'm saying that if I get an offer, I have to see that... because a lot of times, I mean, we are talking about a culture where you have this ad, where they show that the wife is the boss of the husband. So she asks husband to work on some presentation. So the husband has to stay in the office till late in the night. She goes home, she cooks, and she sends a video. MMS to the husband. Right. So the whole idea behind that ad probably be a very noble idea, that empowered woman or whatever. But then, how people perceived it. I'm
that
talking
she's
about
working and she's cooking food.
No, I've spoken to people. I'm talking about the probably a cab driver or I'm talking about the aam janta. I have spoken to them and they'll say that kitna bhi kar le aurat, wo ghar mein aake khana hi banana hai. वो भले ही ऑफिस में बॉस हो. So in a culture, when you are talking about a culture like India, which is way too complex, right? So there, when you are trying to communicate something, more than to be able to communicate, one has to be more careful about the miscommunication which might happen.
And that's why we have nowadays Akshay Kumar is seen doing all these idealistic role where he's like either the savior of the janta, or now he's doing Padman.
No, but then I don't know what you're having against Akshay Kumar.
I don't have anything. I'm saying that the fact that in Bollywood, even that man's proper story, the guy who was actually inspired Padman, is South Indian. But when it comes to Bollywood, it becomes North Indian because they know that the massive crowd that they're going to pull at the end of the day is going to be coming to the movies to watch this story and to watch this star. So they tweak it according to their preferences, what I'm saying. And that's where the problem is. Even if it's coming to a queer story, be it a person about trans rights or whatever, they don't shove it down your throat, but also they portray their version of it, which is why we need queer filmmakers like you and Sridhar to talk about this from your perspective.
Yeah, but then again, on the other hand, I mean, I have a different perspective to it. I mean, like films like Toilet, Ek Prem Katha, that might not be the best piece of cinema.
Or a title.
Yeah, but you know, there I would say that it's a very important film, like a Padman. I mean, no matter. I mean, that's a different debate, that if they should tweak the character, because they're trying to make sure that it reaches to the maximum amount of janta. So the business runs, right? Because unless and until you have an industry which manufactures and sells products, you would not have experiments. So that's what I mean, their part of their marketing or whatever strategy. But I think whatever someone like Akshay Kumar is doing, he's doing really good, because these are important films.
Correct.
I mean, they might not be the bestest of best work of cinema, Indian cinema, but at least people are going to the theatres. I'm talking about the janta. It's not, it's only the pinchful of us who live in big city and gone through a certain kind of education. We don't need to be
third tier.
We don't need to be
but at the same time, like,
taught or enlightened.
My grievance with something like a Toilet movie is, like, while they're talking about the need to be hygienic and have washrooms in your house, at the same time he chases the girl by stalking her. Like, I mean, all I'm saying is, while we have something noble at the back of their heads, the fact that they're not going away from the traditional type of storytelling. The guy has to follow the girl in the market, and then she'll fall in love with him.
Again, I would say that in one film you can do only this much.
I know. I believe you can do so much more. I believe that the fact that you're saying the business is skewed is because the business has been built like this for years now.
I think if we look at it little differently, that give them a chance, like they have at least initiated these discussions. I mean, popular Hindi cinema is a huge platform, right? For before Dostana, a homosexual man would also be termed as a hijra. Or a man who is effeminate, right?
Yeah. How to use the correct term?
Yeah. I mean, at least Dostana, I mean, a lot of people in our LGBT community, they had a problem with the film. But I absolutely supported the film. I think what Dostana, I mean, immense in terms of achievement. Because for the first time, the Aam Janta, they started using the word gay. Right. Otherwise, portrayal of a gay man is always an effeminate man, which is not the fact.
But I'll tell you something,
because
I was in college back when Dostana came out, and if you got very friendly with a guy or something, that became a slang ki tum Dostana chal raha hai.
Dostana chal raha hai.
Which I think there's two ways of looking at this. There's the fact that people will look at it and understand the queer culture or the gay lifestyle, or they'll backlash. My problem with Dostana mainly was because it was not an original movie. It was copied from I Now Pronounce You Chuck and Larry, which is what my biggest bet was. It's not original.
No, but then the popular Hindi cinema is being copied.
Yeah. So I think what we do is also we put up defenses against.
We've been getting inspired.
We've been inspired. We're inspired lot, aren't we?
Yeah.
But I think I'm glad we could have the discussion, Pradipta. I'm so glad that you could come and do this. So as you said, you have so many plans to go forward and do many more films. I hope all our listeners get to see your films and appreciate what you're doing right now in this time and age. Thanks again, and I hope you had a good podcast session with me.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope that I haven't talked unnecessarily too much.
No, I think we actually delved deep and we got a lot. So thank you so much again, Pradipta, for joining us.
Thanks for having me over. Thanks, Naveen.
Yes.
It was a fabulous experience.
Fabulous. All right, so we are keeping it queer. We'll be back after the break with the Culture Vulture segment. Thank you.
Don't go anywhere. The Keeping It Queer podcast will be back with the Culture Vulture segment featuring Farhad right after this break.
Long, long ago, not in Bethlehem, but in a place nearby, there was a wonderful birth of a huge show, which I like to call Cyrus Says. A show that encapsulates everything in human history, from the first Homo sapien to the last Homo sapien, who's traversed the entire world and then come back to India. This is a show which tells you everything about everything. If you want to know, avoid Google, come to us. It's called Cyrus Says. Get new episodes every Monday and Thursday on the IVM Podcast app, website, or wherever you get your podcasts from. It's simple as A, B, oh God, what comes after that?
Cyrus Says is brought to you by Setu IMAX.
Alright, so that was Pradipta Ray, and we're back on Keeping It Queer now with the Culture Vulture segment. Hey Farhad,
Hi, Navin.
how you been?
I've been good.
1 month no smoking, I hear.
Yeah, congratulations are in order.
For you.
Yeah, do I sound better?
You do.
I feel like my voice is less raspy, which is great.
I'll go and compare with the first episode and see if it's the same. The consistency.
This is voice notes. WhatsApp voice notes, I usually get a lot of, oh my god, you don't sound like a gay guy or this. But nowadays, everyone's like, hey, are you gay? So I'm like,
Yeah.
my voice is
The
cleared
smoke
up a
has
bit.
lifted from your throat.
Yeah.
Yeah, you vaped the gay away.
Shit.
Awesome. But I'm
Yeah.
still like hoping to catch on that bandwagon of getting off cigarettes.
No, I will help you through it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Because my co-host from Varta Lab, it's another podcast I host,
Okay.
Akash Mehta has also quit smoking, and like now he's talking about how like all kinds of gunk is coming out of his chest because of like
I
the
totally
first 2-3
relate.
weeks of
yeah.
smoke.
Usually nowadays when I wake up, I just have this cough in the morning, and there's just like one ball of like gross phlegm. Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm talking about my phlegm, but
But
yeah.
that's okay. Everybody goes to that.
But
In
I
fact,
don't
you know-
find it gross because when I look at it in the sink, I'm like, wow,
Yeah,
I'm
it's
glad
out of your
you're out
body.
of my system.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Like I have
yeah.
this thing about like like pimple and phlegm and everything. Like
Yeah.
once it's out, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's out for good.
Yeah.
It's like your body kind of
In
like,
every way, I think
yeah.
my body is expelling shit because,
Good.
like, not only like phlegm. So I was one of those. If I'm gonna take a shit, I need a cigarette, guys, and every shit is accompanied with a cigarette.
Yeah.
So the moment I quit, and I was a 30 cigarettes a day kind of guy.
Wow.
The moment I quit, I realized I was so fucking constipated. I couldn't fucking go.
Oh, shit.
But I went through it, and finally I had to let go. So now when I look at my poop, also it looks a little human again.
What's a human poop?
I don't know. I eat a lot of red meat, so I don't know if I'm confusing this.
Okay, cool. We should have let that phlegm. We should
Yeah.
have just like stopped there. But yeah, so what do you want to talk about today on the Culture Vulture part?
Okay. A little somber, something somber. Yeah.
Sure.
It's a question for you, actually. Do you feel like being a part of the community, you hear about a lot of like deaths? Do you ever feel
Yeah,
like
it's
that?
been a more common trend recently now.
Yeah, nah?
Not commonly now because I've recently become a part of the community. So I hear these cases more often now.
Sure.
And people who we have probably seen at the Pride or seen being a part of the...
Yeah, that's the thing. You know
community.
everyone.
Yeah,
like, you know, even though you don't know them personally.
Yeah, but you
and,
see them around.
Yeah, and day before yesterday, I don't know if you've heard, but there was someone, no names, but like someone who's gone. And yeah, it's a bit of a...
Rude shock, yeah.
Yeah, it is. Because like you don't know the person, but you feel like, oh my God, I used to see him all the time. He looks so handsome. He was so sweet.
You also
He was
look up
so
to them in one way or the other.
Yeah, and then you just know that... then there's the why, because a lot of times I wonder why. There's always a why, what happened, how did it happen. That I find it super insensitive when people on status updates ask,
Exactly.
how did it happen?
I was going to get to that. Some people don't even want to like talk about the person who's passed away, but be like one more person like lost to this tragedy.
Yeah.
But like if you don't want to fish for comments which will ask who the person is or like what happened,
Yeah.
then don't go doing that. I think it's just like
Yeah.
for some reason you need to like have that validation on Facebook that I also spoke about this in some way.
Yeah.
It's the same like when something happens abroad, you're like, oh, pray for something.
Yeah.
You don't get it. You don't
In fact,
understand.
things take a more morbid turn. I feel like a lot of times I've heard, because people don't know what happened or how it happened because they not know the person personally.
Yeah.
A lot of rumors start
Yeah, it
spreading
builds
because of
around
that.
it, becomes a gossip thing.
More often than not, it's always assumed it has to be a suicide. I don't know again if this was or not, but like it's assumed that it's a suicide. And then worse is like, why did he do it? Was something wrong with him? Did he have an STD? That's a common one. I usually and it just
Was he an
really
alcoholic? Was he abusing?
yeah,
What
high
is that?
fun guys. Like,
Yeah,
what
yeah.
the hell? Yeah, it's just sad, man. So I'm a little reeling from that sort of rude shock from someone I did not know very well. But yeah, it's been playing on my mind since yesterday. And he was a really beautiful boy. So yeah.
But what happened? Like,
Again, no idea.
yeah,
No
I mean,
idea.
the same thing I'm asking. Like,
No, but no idea. No, and a lot of times I've heard people want to know. Have you heard that? My shrink told me once you always want to know why someone died to know subconsciously if it's something that can happen to you. So humans
Yeah.
always have a need to
ask,
know
yeah.
that is it something that can happen to me.
This happened to me like now in terms of like before I got into like understanding who I am sexually or whatever,
Yeah.
I was just like spending a lot of time on Facebook befriending people from abroad, you know. So in the bargain, I met a lot of Americans and Canadians and Australians,
Okay.
and like great men from around the world who would educate me about their struggle and their part of life. So one of these people I met, like this guy called Tony, and he was really like, he was in a polyamory relationship, like he was with 2 other men, and it was all nice. I would love seeing his post. I would keep chatting with him because I would not sleep at night and stuff like that. And one fine day, he didn't message me, and I'm like, okay, this must be weird. He must be busy with his partners. And like over a week later, I saw like RIP posts on his Facebook wall, and that's how I came to know. And I did not know whom to talk to because I didn't have any connection with anybody else from his life.
I totally know that feeling, man. Because 2 years ago, I used to know this boy, and this is when Snapchat was new. So for a year, we had each other on Snapchat, and like more than each other, it was the app that we were addicted to, and we used to talk a lot. Sexting, I knew who was in his family, what he was up to, where he works, everything, but we never met. 2 weeks before I got the news, he even messaged me saying, hey, do you want to hang out? I'm in Bombay. I believe he wasn't doing well in Bombay, so he went back to his city, and he was there, and he had come down for something, and he was like, hey, I'm in the city. Do you want to meet up? And it's something I'll regret forever. I remember making an excuse and getting out of it. I don't know why I did that. And 2 weeks later, I see one of those RIP messages. And man, it's just such an odd feeling because, you know, you grieve either your someone you know or a favorite actor or a poet or whoever. But here's a person who you know in a sense, like digitally, you know everything about them, what their pecs look like or what his insecurities were, what made him happy, what made him sad, what his humor was like. I knew everything about him, but I just never met him, and then I directly know he's dead. It is such a confusing time and feeling. I remember that day I had to tell my boss that I'm going home because I'm extremely confused about something. And so loss is a big part of being gay, right? Like dealing with loss and shit.
It's a very common part. I feel like, you know, it's a process that queer people in general will have to like deal with
forever.
Because,
and I can just imagine in the 70s or 80s when
it was,
like
AIDS was a thing.
When it was just breaking out. Like yesterday, someone recommended this poet called Hoshang Merchant. Have you heard of him?
No.
Bombay-based gay, out and proud gay. I looked up some of his YouTube videos. He is a fairy, but a delightful fairy to watch. I read some of his poems, very cute, everything. So Hoshang Merchant was talking about how he's born in the 40s. So how like it started off with everybody saying, oh, he's got hepatitis, but you know, it was the beginning of AIDS, and how they had to deal with so much homophobia, death. There was so much back
in India,
then.
you're talking about?
Yeah, not in India. He lived in San Francisco. He lived in like Iran. He's lived all over the world. Hoshang Merchant, something everybody should also check out.
San Fran, basically on that whole Castro hotspot was like rife with like
just watching your friends die around you was such a common thing then, and it still happens. And it's so random.
Yeah. Before we wind up today's episode, because we've spoken about loss and dealing with loss, do you have any movies that can help people understand?
Absolutely. Two off the top of my mind. First, A Single Man.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah. One of the best. Not only, it's such an important homosexual film, I feel.
That aspect nobody covers. Like, I think we've been screaming about like acceptance and rights and understanding each other's lives. But that whole point where like Colin Firth, he's the lead, right?
Colin Firth.
So Colin Firth's character is just like,
in the 60s, he's so alone, and that's the thing. In the 60s, nobody knew of their relationship. He's not even invited to the funeral. But he's lived with his boy for 16 years. Suddenly finds out he's dead in a car accident in some other city. Just the way he deals with it, and also like a great take on what suicide, what everything, like just.
And he can't even touch him because after his death, because not family.
That's
the worst.
He's
that's
so
what
isolated, and just the format of the everything about the movie. The director Tom Ford, his iconic fashion designer who made a movie,
and won an Oscar also.
Did he? I don't know if Single Man.
The movie was like nominated.
Because I was just revisiting it after years. I had seen it back then, and I was just like, wow, what a great film. But recently I thought I should watch it again. Tom Ford, again, if he stops making clothes, he can definitely keep making films, because it was such a beautiful movie to watch. And
Colin Firth was nominated for the Oscar.
Okay, no,
for this movie.
I'm not surprised. Even Julianne Moore, who's
Julianne
his best
Moore.
friend,
Yeah.
she's amazing in that movie.
Yeah, she
Julianne-
also tries to like tell him ki maybe you should like just like hook up with a woman for a change and feel better. She like
yeah, but no, just again, it was just a stunning because of his design capabilities, like just art direction, cinematography. Not a single frame was wasted. It was beautiful through and through,
Yeah.
and just the message and the story was so like sweet, and it's shot entirely in a day. I love movies that are shot entirely,
Exactly, yeah.
like the story frame is in a day
Very
or in a
self-contained,
night.
yeah.
Something happens over a day or over a night, and
Correct.
just the day that he decides to kill himself, what happens?
the skinny dipping scene is just like
Nicholas
marvelous.
Hoult
Nicholas Hoult,
special.
yeah, yeah.
Oh God, fuck! I've been a fan of his since Skins.
Yeah, yeah.
Many jizzes have been expended at Nicholas Hoult.
All right, that's one. What's the second movie?
The Beginners. Oh my God.
Yeah. Again, a very strong understanding.
Any movie in which Ian McGregor's father dies is an amazing movie. Let's just establish
Where else
that.
has his father died?
Big Fish.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. How did I forget
That
Big
is,
Fish? That's a magical movie.
Yeah, that's a great fucking movie. But The Beginners, again, finds out his father is gay,
Yeah.
how it affects his life and how his relationships are affected because his father comes out as gay. What a beautiful film. Seen it a million times and never gets old.
Yeah, man. And like the fact that the art direction in the movie, again, this one's also really the storytelling techniques.
Yeah, totally flashbacks, front and back.
Beautiful.
I love it's choppy, it's amazing.
Yeah, man, Christopher Plummer, like in that age and time,
Totally.
being who
I
he
just
is.
remember, even while we were talking about it, I remember all his shirts in the movie. They were like so fucking lovely, like chiffon. Like, great film. Great
Nice.
film. The Beginners and A Single Man.
And The Big Fish also, if you want to watch it.
Definitely.
Yeah, check
Loss.
it out.
It's about loss.
It's about loss. So, dear listeners, if you have dealt with similar issues in your life where you're trying to cope with loss, what do you go to? What is your go-to music or movie or TV show? Do let us know. You can talk to me at House of Narona, and you can talk to Farhad, but Farhad is not on Twitter, so you can talk through me to him. And if you want to meet him sometime, do meet him.
Anyone's free to look me up on Instagram.
Yeah,
Just type Farhad.
Yeah.
You'll find me.
And Farhad's more interested in meeting people now that like eventuality of meetings is dawned upon him.
Yeah.
He's making to appointments and everything for on time. So I respect that, man.
Yeah, thanks.
Cool. So until then, we're keeping it clear. I'll see you next week. Bye bye.
Bye.
There she stands, a podcast addict. Outside the bank, having traveled several miles to get in with other poor souls like her. The journey, though daunting for this youngling, will have some comfort because she has downloaded her favorite podcast. You can see more of her species on ivmpodcasts.com, your one-stop destination where you can check out the coolest Indian podcasts. Happy listening.